Hey everybody! Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have Timber Hawkeye, who is here in Seattle. Woohoo! In my house.
I know. Normally we do this over Skype, and I'm sitting facing a screen, and I see you blurry sometimes, but now you're right here. It's pretty wonderful.
And I look clear?
Yes.
All right, so you're coming here to Seattle, and are you going to be talking about your new book?
Yes. February 26th is the launch. Well, it launched January 26th, but February 26th is the beginning of the book tour across the U.S.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us the title of the book.
Faithfully Religionless. I have a copy of it.
Faithfully Religionless.
Religionless, yes.
Yay. Okay, so people can get that as it's on. They can get
anywhere.
it on Amazon
it's already
now,
out.
right?
They can get it anywhere. Preferably a local independent bookstore, but if you don't have one near you, then yes, Amazon has it. It's available on Audible and iTunes. I recorded the audio myself in San Francisco, which is great. Especially since this new book is a memoir. So it is different than the first book.
It's a memoir.
It is.
Oh, okay. So we're going to have to... Can you give us kind of a highlight? So,
well,
I was going to ask you, like, how did you even arrive at this point?
Yeah, well, Buddhist Bootcamp was a collection of short stories and letters that I had sent to my friends over the course of about 8 years. Mm-hmm. And then I did this book tour for 2.5 years across the US, UK, and Australia. And when I landed back in not so crazy land,
right.
I was able to kind of write down all the talks and the topics that came up during those discussions for 2.5 years. And I stayed in a little cabin in the East Sierras where all this stuff came up, and I wrote it down. And it's about my own journey from moving from Israel to the States. And it was my first year high school. I didn't speak a word of English. I'd never heard about any other religions or anything like that. And the book literally starts with me sitting in the kitchen in San Francisco as a teenager and watching the neighbors across the street bring a dead tree home and decorate it with lights. And I had no idea what was going on, and it starts with me getting really curious about all these other religions and cultures and races, and just finding truth in a lot of them.
So were you raised with Judaism then?
Yeah, I mean, in a little town in the northernmost part of Israel where everyone is Jewish, and so Judaism was not really a big part of our lives because we didn't have anything to prove to anyone or anything. And yet when we moved to the States, all of a sudden the fact that we were Jewish became a really big deal. My parents wanted to celebrate it more, and it like all the family would get together on Jewish holidays, which is something we've never celebrated before. So it was really strange for me that all of a sudden religion became important. And
because do you think it was a way to kind of reestablish your roots or like remember
a way for my family to connect with one another, whereas I was more curious in everybody else. I wanted to learn about all the other different beliefs, not just so it starts kind of with that.
How old were you when you came?
First year high school, so teenager.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was an interesting cultural shock, of course. Not only did we move from Israel to the States, but to San Francisco. So
that's a culture shock.
Yeah,
I used to live in the Bay Area, and I love the Bay Area, but that's a huge cultural
there were
shift.
3,000 students in my high school, and only a handful of us were Caucasian, so everything was new.
Wow.
But mostly, so it kind of takes you through that, and then the lessons learned along the way, and then me wanting to be the all-American kid, and whatever that entails, and that the all-American man, and whatever that looks like, and the condo, the house, the job, and it takes you through Seattle, where I was working at a law firm, and one day decided to sell it all and move to Hawaii, which is where kind of Buddhist Bootcamp started, with a chapter about every month I would write down something I was learning. But then what that was like, what it was like to sell everything I own, move to the islands and quit the corporate world and simplify my life, because it's really about learning to lead a simple and uncomplicated life and realizing that happiness is available to all of us right here and now, rather than keep saying, oh, I'll be happy when ... not pushing it into the future. So takes you through that, and always kind of bringing it back to having, when I tell people I don't have a religion, they automatically assume I don't believe in God, but nothing could be further from the truth. And there is an interesting and unnecessary connection between God and religion and the Bible and the church.
Right.
And they're all very separate.
Then why taking the moniker of Buddhist boot camp? Why the Buddhist part if you don't have a religion?
I wouldn't consider Buddhism a religion in the first place. There's no God figure. There is no creator theory. There is no beginning. There's no. It's more of a philosophy. And the reason Buddhist boot camp was called Buddhist boot camp had nothing to. It was every time I watched Fight Club, I think I told you, I thought to myself, this is Buddhist boot camp, because I learned, even though my initial intention was just to lead a simple life, and I moved to Hawaii, I never foresaw that actually me ending up living in a monastery. I mean, it doesn't get simpler than that.
Right. So you were in a monastery in Hawaii.
I started there and then moved to a Zen one and then came back to Hawaii to live in a Zen temple. And
wow.
Yeah, so there was always this undercurrent of Buddhism underneath it all. But even that I found, because there's over 800 different schools of Buddhism, so that can get really complicated. And I realized it's not even about being a Buddhist or a Christian or Jewish. It's about being Buddha-like or Christ-like. And that's kind of the invitation, is to keep the faith that we have, very faithful,
right?
But religionless, to not necessarily
so that's a faithfully religionless. That's
exactly.
The religionless part of it.
Correct, yeah.
And religion you're defining as like something that has religion. Like an organized religion that has a greater story, someone that you're honoring or
worshiping and all that.
Right.
And and religion really needs to go beyond being exclusive to being inclusive. And I think a lot of religious leaders are starting to recognize that. And so what was really
inclusive of other religions.
Inclusive of everyone. Not just other religions, but to not have such a strict, rigid lines of what's okay and what's not okay.
Right.
And you see very slowly this is actually growing in acceptance with the new Pope and everything. Is there is a very slow but nonetheless progress towards being more accepting, and I think it's a beautiful thing to see, and I think it's the only way religion can survive if it wants to. I don't personally think it's necessary. I don't have anything against religion, but I don't think we need it in order to be ethical.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people out there who consider themselves spiritual but not religious.
Right.
And that's who this book is for.
Spiritual but not religious. Okay, that's me.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. And so
it's a lot of people.
It is. The book has been out about 3 weeks now, and the reviews have been incredible because people are reading it going, I didn't realize I was so faithfully religionless myself. So it kind of...
You started a new religion, a faithfully religious. Good, congratulations.
No, it's this, and that's
actually,
what I love.
Actually, start bowing to you right now.
No. The beauty of it is you're honoring your own divinity within you, and the ability to, and recognizing God in everything and everyone else. And it's so beautiful to do that without the dogma, without the ritual, without anybody else telling you what to be or what to believe. You're actually kind of creating your own core values. You're writing them down, your own commandments, if you would, your own precepts, and saying, am I living the life I envision?
Yes.
And it's very freeing, which is why the symbol of the wings and free, this is a tattoo I actually got done in Seattle like 13 years ago.
Tattoo?
This is on my back. Really,
wow.
Yeah. And it's to symbolize this freedom from anger, freedom from ego, freedom from religion, from any, just free. Yeah. The only difference is this is better. The one that I have on my back was before this came along, so the guy on my back is going woohoo. So that's the only difference.
Oh, well, you can get that redone.
I kind of like that. It's part of the progress. It's not. It's just, this is better. I like this.
Okay, so what is the faithfully part? Because it's hard. I think it's to be faithfully religious. What is it? What is the faithful mean?
Full faith. So I have a tremendous amount of faith in God and trust, and not just trust. And when I say God, I don't mean the bearded white guy in the sky,
right?
Or anyone or anything that condemns, bad behavior and condones good. And but we all have faith, whether we acknowledge it or not. If you have plans for tomorrow, you have faith that you're going to be here, because we have no guarantees, but we trust that that whatever it is that's making our heart beat right now is going to do that 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes, maybe even 10 years from now. If you have like a retirement account, that's a whole lot of faith.
Right.
But it's bigger than that. It's faith that we're going to be okay. That if you zoom out
you laughed about the retirement card. Is that like ridiculous to you? You're laughing at like most of the population because you think that that's a ridiculous amount of faith, or what does that mean?
If we're saving to live our life later instead of now, then it's not in balance. I'm not saying it's ridiculous to count on there being a tomorrow, but not for the price of today.
Okay.
And so balance it out. Make sure you're living plenty now instead of saying, I'll go on that vacation when I retire. I'll do that when I retire. Because you may not even get there and you waited your whole life to do something.
I've totally, my dad died when he was 67. And he kept on saying, when I finish my work, then I'm going to write this book. And then after I write this book, he had all these plans that were kind of queued up, once he retired. And he died, a year and a half into writing this book. Wow. And he was actually in the last chapter of his book, which was so sad. But it's one of those things where that really shifted my attitude towards like, why now do I still have Fidelity 401k? Yes, I do. I do have that, but it's one of those things that I do think that you can almost save to a point that, like, for what's the purpose? If you're not really enjoying life because you're waiting,
and you can't take all that money with you when you're gone. So and there's no guarantees, and it's not even about just faith in tomorrow, but faith in humanity, faith that there is good in the world, that it is all actually balanced. I think what happens is if we focus too much on the negative, we forget all the positive. And so my practice is to constantly zoom out and just keep looking at the big picture because it is balanced. It is beautiful. There's always been war. There's always been conflict. And we've gone through so much in our own lives. And yet we're betting against ourselves. We think that we're not going to make it through whatever comes next. But I always say, if I was in Vegas and I was taking a bet on whether or not you're going to survive what comes next, I will put all my money on you making it through it because you've made it through everything else so far.
Right.
You're here, and yet we're constantly betting against ourselves.
Right.
It's
really interesting. I actually think there are very few people that I know like you. I'm still sorry to fixate on this. Have you always been this way as a personality? I just took a Myers-Briggs class, and they have at the very end they have someone who judges or perceives, and so there's two different types of personality.
And I talk a lot about this, and I don't think it's a built-in hardwired personality trait.
They would say it's a personality trait,
and the opposite of what you know is also true. So, which is the first principle. I'm just curious
because I actually on that scale on the Myers-Briggs, I'm on like if there's a J or a P, I'm like on the serious J side, almost like if there's like clear, absurdly clear, I'm like on the absurdly clear, neutral. I'm on that super planned, organized side.
And I think that it's actually a muscle that we exercise, and we.
You mean to be about spontaneous and open to possibilities.
Just bringing awareness to when you're being judgmental, when you're being negative, all of you, whatever you think is part of your hardwired personality trait. You know? And catching yourself and going, whoa. That's not who I want to be. Yeah. And I forget who it was, said, name your demons. So if there's a judgmental part of you, give her a name.
It's not judgmental. It's judging. God. And she doesn't have a name.
She doesn't have a name. She doesn't even exist. What I'm saying is
it's Clarice. That's Clarice. It's Clarice. That's her name, yeah.
Oh, don't stand too close to the glass, Clarice.
Exactly.
The invitation is to kind of bring awareness to that and notice when you're making a decision out of fear instead of out of love and going, I don't want to be that person anymore. So in the book, I talk about doing an exercise where you fold a piece of paper in half and you create a crease. And over our lives, we've behaved in a certain way over and over again, making decisions out of that same fearful place. And we've created a pretty deep crease. So that's like almost our knee-jerk reaction. But it is not our hardwired personality trait. It's just a habitual pattern, and we can create new habitual patterns. So no, I wasn't always like this.
You were. So were you on the planning, organizing? I know going to be.
Hardcore. Yeah, hardcore, and I was very rigid and strict, and locking my door, and making sure everything. Now I just let it go, and when I catch myself making a decision that's not trusting, that's
Right.
not open, that's not.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And it starts with again, it's a muscle that you exercise. So if
Right.
you always put your right shoe on in the morning first, put your left one on,
Right.
just to kind of get in the habit of catching yourself doing something out of habit
Right.
and creating a new one
Or
that's
even
more
you,
intentional.
yeah, in the example that you gave, like the crease is always like folding over and over. You're like, create another crease, create another.
And creating
paper.
a new crease is possible, but it takes more deliberate intention.
Right.
And that's where mindfulness and awareness and meditation, the benefits of all those are not just doing those 20 minutes of sitting quietly.
Right.
It's later in the day when something happens at work and you have this pattern of overreacting, you catch yourself and go, I don't have to attend this argument.
Right.
I can just let it go.
Right.
And so the book is really about the beauty of letting go of judgment, and letting go of fear, letting go of ego, letting go of all the things that hold us back, of all the ways we've identified ourselves as someone we don't actually want to be, either if for the sake of impressing our parents or others, or for all the quote-unquote wrong reasons.
Okay, so how did you make this journey? Because I think if you're on a spiritual path, that's where you want to be. That's the destination. I think that most people are trying to let go of ego, because then you can be more present, you can be enjoying life more, all the different things that you talk about. But if you were to, now I'm going back to my planning, organizing part, so please forgive me.
That's all right.
But if you're going to planning work, if you were to actually look and say, okay, here was the map that mapped my life out, like here's what it looked like. It started with this point. I'm planning my vacation, I'm organized to the point right now where you don't have a 401k. I'm not going to harp on that because, sorry, aren't you scared?
Yeah, I don't even have health insurance. I knew that would scare you. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the path that you walk from this point to this point. Like, how does one develop a different crease? Or
one step at a time.
Okay, but tell us about your path.
There is no, you gotta take happiness, and instead of putting it at some point in the future, like I will be happy when I reach that level of awareness, when I let go of ego. There is no letting go of ego. There's actually acknowledging the ego and saying, I see you, and I'm not gonna act on your behalf today.
Okay.
And there's also seeing the God within and going, I see you, and I'm gonna make best friends with you, and we're gonna work on this together. And every moment, every day is a practice. Every time I'm in a situation where, I always say you're going to continue being surrounded by annoying people and frustrating situations and people pushing your buttons only until you no longer have buttons that can be pushed. And then you'll just see them as people and situations, period. And so all of these experiences that we're going through that push our buttons are actually gifts. They're like, here's what you need to work on. And a lesson will repeat itself until you learn it. It's just one of those things.
Oh, it will.
So it's not about just, me getting in the car and driving to New York and saying, all right, what bookstore wants to host me? There is planning involved, no doubt.
Right.
So it's not about being completely careless. It's actually very...
Well, I'm not saying, I don't think it's being careless.
Yeah, okay, good.
No, I think
because a lot of people
carefree.
do carefree. I like that better than careless. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm striving to be more. You're aspirational to me, seriously, because my crease is so deep. It's so deep. It's taken a while.
Yeah.
And I actually have taken steps. I can outline mine in steps.
Of course you can.
Like I'm at the point right now where it's almost like this epic boxing match between my ego and
It's Fight Club, yeah.
Yeah, it completely is like Fight Club, where there's this epic battle, and it's really hard. And I have to say that my ego was pounding the crap out of my godlike self, and my godlike self gets up again and it's like, no, it's okay, it's okay, I'm here again. I'm here again, ready to work with you. And it's just it's an epic battle. It takes a while, so that's why I was asking. Like,
and the one you feed more, it's the voice you listen to more is the one that gets louder, or the story of the two wolves, whichever one you feed is the one that wins. And so there's so many stories around this internal battle. You're not alone at this.
I know.
We're all
It's
going
hard,
through
though.
it. It's harder not to acknowledge it. It's harder to just give in to the ego and live your life in fear. So as difficult as
that's easier to me. It's easier for me to just
to live in fear and to constantly worry and stress.
Like
really? Okay. Then this interview is over. Thank you all very much. Next, from CJ, how to live with stress in your life. My friend and I walked around Green Lake the other day, and the way he saw it is that a lot of us are in the zoo, and yet the gates are open, And I got out of the zoo. And I'm flying around. I'm having a good time. I got my big wings. I'm like, woohoo. And I'm going to people going, come on out. Come on. You don't have to stay in your cages. Come.
Right. And the doors are open.
The door's open. You can just come out.
We don't realize the doors are open.
The people are like, well, where's your next meal going to come from? And I'm like, I don't know. Just come. You'll see.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I need to know. Where's it going to come from? Where, who's going to feed me and where? And I'm like, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that I haven't gone hungry. Is that there's always food. You just have to trust. Or people, saying, oh, but I can't leave this cage. The stack of hay in the corner there is so comfortable.
Right.
And meanwhile, I'm doing cartwheels on the grass. And they're like... And so there is this weird thing where I'm not showing off. I'm not doing this to, annoy people. But it does... people get pissed off, though. They do?
What are they pissed off about?
There are those who can be really, really happy for me and just say, I'm so happy you found your joy and you're doing what you love.
Right.
And then there are those who want to do that, but fear is holding them back. And so my being there is just a constant reminder.
See, that's interesting. They get pissed off. People just think I'm scary or just weird.
No, people just, either they think I'm faking it, which after a while
no, you're not faking it. If you think that he's faking it, he's really not faking it. Like it's funny because I went to, the last time I went to East West Bookstore, and I went home and because I talked to a lot of people. I've talked to hundreds of people. Yeah. And I went back, and there are people who are supposedly the real deal, and I'm like, they're not the real deal. Just because this is my J side.
Okay.
This is Clarice coming in. Okay. Clarice. So I went to yours and I said, no, that's the real deal. Like you really are the real deal. Like what you say and what you do, it's all.
And that's what I talk about that a lot in the book is, Gandhi said that happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in alignment.
It's all in alignment for you.
And I think that's why it's important for us to write down what our core values are so we can actually see them and then cross-reference it with how we're actually behaving in the world and then seeing, am I living in alignment? Because if I'm not, it's not somebody else's fault. We're so busy blaming other people for our imbalance, but it's us. And people tell me, oh, I want to save money and I just went on vacation, or I want to save money and I just did this, or I want to save money but I'm thinking about having another kid, and I'm like, from the outside there's no judgment going, you do what you want, but you're saying one thing and you're doing another. But what's really important, Gandhi also said, your actions convey your priorities. So look at your actions and you'll see where your money is going, where your heart is going, where your attention is going, where focus, energy, all of that. Because if you really, really wanted to do this, if you really wanted to break free, all of your energy would go into it.
Right. Yeah. And was there ever a point where you hit fear when you actually sold all your stuff, went to Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. And I talk about it in the book. I say, was I scared to move to Hawaii? I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job. Of course, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, is to not be so scared of fear, or fearful of being scared or whatever, just doing it anyway.
No, I know, fear. I actually went to a meditation retreat and there was a guy who was freaking out and he had fear.
He was afraid of fear. Huh.
And I thought, wow. But I think we are, most of us are just fearful. We are just too afraid to go out because we're afraid maybe it won't work out. What if people think I look stupid?
Letting go of what people think about you, letting go of trying to look a certain way because we think that that's the vision of success or beautiful or attractive or whatever, and dropping all of that. It's so liberating. Again,
I'm already there. Look at me.
Beautiful.
I'm already there.
No. So it's been a wonderful experience. It still is. The book is still very young, and it's still finding a voice with readers who so far receive it with the same intention with which it was written, which is not always the case with a written word. But I think if you just go into it without any expectations that it's going to be another Buddhist boot camp, but just more like a conversation with me. If you're listening to the audiobook, for example, it would be like I'm sitting in the passenger seat next to you telling you a story. Right. Or if we're hiking together and I'm telling you something by the fire.
And that's what I love, actually. What I love about when I went to East West Bookstore and the various events that you're going to go to, I assume that they kind of have a similar arc to them.
Sit in a circle and we have a discussion.
And it's And it was almost akin to group therapy. I don't know if you like that or not.
Or a support group, you know.
Yeah, but it felt like that. Like people were coming in and raising their hand and bringing up whatever issues were on their mind. And you were just being real with them and sitting and just... And sometimes they're like, I don't know. It's not like you have the answer to everything.
When I don't come prepared, I don't know what questions are going to be answered. So I just show up, and everyone contributes. And it's just this beautiful... space I think that we're all really, really hungry for. I know and if I can provide that, then hey, I did good today.
All right, so I want to go back to the memoir. So when you were actually writing it, sorry.
It's all right.
I want to go back into the 9 months of when you were in the cabin writing. I mean, what were the painful, raw parts that you went through and thought, wow, I didn't even realize that this was inside of me until I started writing it?
Well, there's a lot of forgiveness going on and realizing that no one has to apologize to you. They don't even have to be sorry for you to forgive them. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting to write about some of the stuff from my childhood that is painful, and yet write about it factually, not from a standpoint of I was wronged and this was done to me, but that's interesting. This happened, but here I am. And this really interesting process of I'm not angry at anybody. I'm not holding a grudge. Right. These are facts. I'm not trash talking anyone. I'm just sharing these things occurred, and yet I'm still here. And maybe that's why I'm still here. And so this beautiful observing what's happening and what's happened without judgment and just, like I don't want to give away the end where there is a moment of a near drowning incident where I was just observing what was happening rather than reacting to what was happening. So there I was just writing all this out and there was no emotion attached to it. It was just, this is it. And there's beauty in it and there is horror in it, but it's all part of it and it's all beautiful.
Right, and not going into the place of judging yourself, judging someone else, but just almost like, in some ways we talk, it's interesting because when we tell our stories, right, we want someone to say like, look at me, I'm a victim. Look at me, it's awful, and you're to blame, and you're to blame, and you're to blame.
And I'm saying, I'm not a victim, no one's a victim, we're all here, and it's exact opposite. It's not even look at me, because what I'm hoping and what I'm hearing is that the book kind of becomes a mirror. And everyone reading it sees themselves in these stories and can relate because this isn't my book; it's our book. This is our story, and I love that we can share that. And I think that's where the freedom comes from, is realizing I'm not in this alone, and the distinction between alone and lonely is in this, between faith and religion, between feelings and emotions. I talk more about that because that's something from Buddhist Bootcamp. People really wanted to talk about that. The disparity between truths and facts. Your truth, my truth. Could be very, very different. Right. And we don't have to agree. I don't need to convince you of my truth. Right. I don't need to prove you wrong to be right. I just letting all of that go. Right. And you can tell me what you believe and I can go, well, that's interesting. Right. And that's it. Just let it go. It doesn't change. It doesn't threaten my own beliefs. In fact, it might expand them to now I know some people believe that. Cool.
Well, it's interesting because if I think about the book that you wrote, the previous one, the Buddhist Bootcamp, and then also the session that you did in East West Bookstore, it was about they're just some human experiences that all of us go through, right? Truth and fact. Yeah. All the ones that you listed are just the nature of being human, and to kind of say like I assume that you didn't write it and here's what I figured out.
No, it's coming from an experimental place, and I treated everything like an experiment, and I tried not clinging so tightly to my views and just kind of letting that go a little bit. We talked about that, about tension, noticing tension when we're clinging. And it's that same muscle, it's that same crease where the stuff that we're clinging to that's tangible is very closely related to the stuff that we're clinging to that's our opinions, our judgments, our beliefs. And that's why, moving to Hawaii, getting rid of all this stuff, the tangible stuff, really helped me also get rid of opinions and beliefs and thoughts and memories, and just I don't have to cling to anything so tightly.
Okay, I just had a major aha. In that moment, no, because so all the kinds of tensions that you're talking about, whether when you meet with someone that you disagree, all the different things that you just delineated are part of the human experience. And so is trusting and having faith and traveling throughout life with love. That is part of the human experience.
That's the natural human experience.
That is the natural human experience.
Unnatural reaction is to resist it, to fight it, to argue, that doesn't flow. It's against, it's resistant.
Right.
And by all means, do it if that works for you. But
it's easy. that makes it even sound even more foolish. No, but it is our natural state, and we forget it so easily. And when you live in that place, in the moments that I can remember, and I'm living from that place, they're just joyous, and they're simple things. Like it just can be like looking at my coffee this morning and looking at the cloud-like shapes that created and merged and created, like it was like this moving abstract art piece when I poured the cream in.
Which
was
is
just
how
like a
children look
thing.
At everything in the world.
And it was happy. It was like a really happy moment for me, and it was like 30 seconds of happiness, but I was super happy. Just like, wow, it's like life is art. Look at my coffee with the cream in it. It can be every moment.
Everything can be like that.
Yeah, I love it. So this is how we live our life if we're faithfully religionless.
I know, it's a tongue twister.
Okay, so look, folks, look at the title just so that you can see it really clearly. And that's a tattoo that you have on your back, except you would have had it be Namaste at the heart.
Oh, it would, yeah, but he's doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take off my shirt, but...
Anything else that you want to tell us about the book?
My hope is that when you're done reading it, you pass it on to someone else. Just keep spreading it. Don't let it sit on a shelf. Just, give it to friends.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward, yeah. It's because I published it myself, I was in a lot more control. So I made it available in hardcover and paperback right off the bat.
Yeah.
So people can have the option, whichever one they prefer. It's available as large print as well, and audio and ebook and anything. Just the audio is like $5. It's like just my this is not a money making machine. This is people ask me how do you live your life, and all that. The money that the book makes goes right back to the book. It goes right back to spreading the message. I'm not staying in hotels. I told you I'm sleeping on floors and couches, and I don't think the message would have any integrity behind it if I was showing up in a limo at my book events.
Hello, people!
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I think it's fine either way.
It's only if it's in line with my values. So if you wear a fur coat and you're totally okay with it, that's great. But if you're saying you're against animal cruelty and you're wearing a fur coat to an animal rights campaign, then there's a problem there.
I have an idea of what to do with your book.
Okay,
here's what you're going to do. I'm a marketing person. I think you should...
Oh, and it says to drop the word should from your vocabulary.
Oh,
but go ahead.
Here's what you may consider doing.
There you go. Thank you.
Here's what I have open.
Don't shit on me.
Idea. No, I think it'd be really fun because part of what you want to do is spread the word, right? So I'd love if people could write their name and what page or what their favorite thing was, and then pass it along.
Yeah, I've seen it where people show up at a book event and they want me to sign their books, and I open it to sign, and on the side they have the name and date of everyone who's read it.
And
it's like highlighted and marked, and it's just been an incredible gift to meet so many people on this journey. And I hope to see you guys at the events wherever you come. All the book tour information is on the website. Thank you so much, and thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Faithfully religion. Why is it so hard for me to say this? Faithfully religionless.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you.